Hey guys, this is Kamal. So today we're going to start the HTML crash course, and this is the second video in the web development crash course. So if you haven't seen the first video, then I highly suggest you to see that, because in that video I have explained what we're going to cover in this crash course. So it's better to see that first, then you can carry on from here. Okay, so before getting started, I wanted to mention that I have actually created a Telegram group for Packet Code, so you can post your queries and comments there. And whenever I upload a new video here, you'll automatically get the update from Telegram. And along with that, if you can solve any of the questions posted by other group members, then please do so that you can actually help each other out, and I'll try to answer any of the questions that I can. So let's try to build a community for Packet Code, which can be useful for us. So let's roll the intro and let's get this started. Okay, so the first question to answer here is, what is HTML? So HTML is an abbreviation for Hypertext Markup Language. So this HTML is not essentially a programming language. Instead, it's a markup language. As the name implies, it's a hypertext markup language. Hypertext is something we are going to worry about later, but now try to concentrate on this markup language. So what it means is that it's not a programming language. Instead, it's a set of way that you can actually type the data. So it's like a markup or a structure, or more like a skeleton that you're going to define. So using the HTML, we are going to first define the skeleton structure for a website, and later on top of HTML, we are going to add some CSS and JavaScript and all of that. So first we are going to type the HTML. So let's not get complicated. Let's first type, and while coding, I'll explain everything to you. So follow along. So open your browser, and we are going to first download the editor that we are going to use. So you can use Sublime or Atom, but I prefer using Visual Studio Code. So type in Visual Studio Code in your browser and click on the first link. So it's going to open code.visualstudio.com. Then automatically it might show you the version for the download version here. If not, then you can go to the download section and click on the download for your specific platform. So after you're done downloading this editor, you can install it. After you're done installing, create a folder somewhere in your computer and name it anything you want. I have named it as HTML crash course. So open that folder and right click in that folder, and you might have an option for open with code. So you can click on that to open that folder in Visual Studio Code. If you don't have that option, then what you can do is you can open Visual Studio Code by searching in the browser. Sorry, not in the browser, but in your computer. Then once you're done opening it, click on File and click on Open Folder. And then you can actually select the folder and click on Select Folder. So that's going to do essentially the same thing, but in a different manner. That's it. Okay. So the main thing about this Visual Studio Code is you can actually install some extensions, which is going to simplify the things for you. So for now, we are going to actually install 3 extensions. So the first one is a live server. The second one is the prettier, it's a code formatter, and the third one is bracket pair colorizer. So first one is live server. So let's first install that. So in the left hand side, you have all these options, right? So the bottom second one is the extensions button. So click on that and you can actually search the extensions. Okay, so let's type in live server. So not liver server, it's live server. Click on live server, the first option. So you will have an install button here. Click on that install and it's going to install it for you. So what happens in HTML is that when you type the text and save it, you have to actually open that file in the browser, and you have to refresh each and every time that you make a change to the source file. So instead of doing that, if you have the live server, automatically when you save the source file or the code file, the output will automatically be refreshed in the browser itself. Okay, so I'm going to explain that later, but that's the basic idea behind it. So the second one we need is prettier. So prettier is a code formatter. So what it does is that when you save the file, the code file, automatically the lines will be formatted so that it's visually appealing for you, so that you can read it easily. So that's the main thing for prettier. Then next, install bracket pair colorizer, I think. Yeah, bracket pair colorizer. So install that. Once you've done installing it, what it does is that it's going to actually apply the same color for the bracket pair. So let's say you have an if condition, then it's going to apply the same color for the opening and the closing bracket, so that you can actually easily identify the brackets. So once you're done installing these 3 extensions, then open the folder. So in that folder, create a new file and name it to be index.html. So what we've done is we have created a file specific for HTML. So similarly, when you create a file for a normal text file, you name it as some test.txt, right? So this txt extension represents that it's a plain text file. Similarly, .html represents that file is specific for HTML. Yeah, and we have index, right? So what it means is that whenever you create a file, you have to name the home page as index.html. So whenever you open your website in the browser, the first page the server is going to load is index file. So index is going to be the home page or the main page for your website, and that's the file that's going to be loaded first. So remember that. So index.html is going to be the main page. And let's see. So since we are in Visual Studio Code, let's zoom in a bit. So since we are in Visual Studio Code, so in this code editor, we actually have an IntelliSense. So what it does is that it's going to, you can actually generate the basic boiler template for HTML by doing this. So type in exclamation mark and you will have an emmet abbreviation, right? After you've done that, after you've typed in exclamation mark, click on tab. So that is going to generate the basic boiler template for our HTML. So let's quickly see what it does. So what are the things that we're going to get? So the first line, we have doc type HTML, right? So what it represents is that this document is of type HTML5. Okay, so in HTML4 we had doc type HTML something else, so that was used to represent the HTML4, whereas we are using now HTML5. So this line is going to represent that this document is of type HTML and is the 5th version. Then after that you're going to start the HTML. So in HTML we are going to actually use tags. Okay, so see here, you have a head tag here and a head tag here, right? So don't worry about head and body for now, but what it means is that we are going to actually use tags. Okay, so we are going to have something like this. Let me go down a bit. So what it means is that we are going to have 2 tags. Okay, so the first one is going to be an opening tag. So this is an opening tag and this is a closing tag. So here you're going to write the tag name. Okay, so this is the HTML opening tag and this is the HTML closing tag. So you're going to have a slash. This represents the closing tag. So if you want to write any data, so you have to write that data in between these 2 tags. Okay, this HTML represents that is the HTML part. Anything that is outside these 2 tags is not considered as HTML. So let's first go back. Okay, so we have the doc type, then we have the HTML. So this is the HTML opening and this is the HTML closing. So all the data present in between is represented as HTML. And we're going to use language English. So that is the notation for English. It's not necessary, but if you want you can use it. So in the HTML part you have 2 main sections, that is the head section and the body section. So similar to the tags for HTML, we're going to represent that section using an opening tag and a closing tag. So we have an head opening tag and a closing head tag. Similarly, we have an opening body tag and a closing body tag. So the head part first. Okay, so head. So what it means is that whatever data that you place inside the head is not visible on the screen. So mainly you keep all the data like the metadata. So metadata is the data that is used by the search engines to optimize your page. Okay, so what it means is that when you type in Facebook in the browser, automatically it refers to Facebook, right? That optimization is being done by the search engine, that is Google. So Google uses the data that is represented in meta tags, and it's going to use that data so that it can actually increase the accuracy of the search engine so that it can point to your website. In the head part, other than the metadata, we are going to include the title. So this title is the part that you see in the browser at the top. Okay, so let's say you open the browser and here you have download Visual Studio Code, right? This thing that you can see here is actually being defined by the title. This icon and this data here is represented by our title. So what do you keep here in this two tags in between the opening title and the closing title, that will be represented there. So that is the head part. We are going to include the metadata, that is the data used by search engines, and the title of your page. Okay, then next we have the body section. So all the data that is visible on the screen, like all the data visible here from in this box, is being represented or is being placed inside the body section. The body is the main part where you will keep the data so that it can be visible. Okay, so first let's do one thing. So let's type in some headings and some paragraphs. Okay, so in HTML you're going to type a heading as h1 and tab. Sorry, not in HTML, in Visual Studio Code. So generally this is the syntax for a heading, so it's going to be heading. So this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag. So it has h1 and h1. So h1 represents the heading 1. So you can give any data in between these two tags. Any data in between these two tags will be outputted there. So we have different types of headings. Okay, so you can actually give a heading from h1 to h6, whereas in which h1 is the biggest one and whereas h6 is the smallest version. And similar to the doc type, for that, like how we generated the basic template, you can actually generate the heading as well. You don't need to write the whole thing. You can just type in h1 and click on tab, and that emit abbreviation is going to autofill the data. So that tag has been autofilled. So let's save this. Okay, so let's save the file first. So we have an index.html file, right? So let's do one thing. Open a file explorer. In that you will have the index.html file, right? Saved it. So you can right click and open with Chrome browser. So I'm going to open it in Chrome. So as you can see, we had the heading here. So whatever I have typed here, this heading is visible here. And let's say I've changed the title to HTML crash course and saved it. Once you saved it, you have to go to the page again and see here. After you're done saving, you have to refresh the page. Okay, so you have to refresh the page so that you can actually see the output. But let's say you want to write some data again, then you have to go back and you have to refresh it each and every single time, right? So to avoid that, what you can do is you can use the live server. So whenever you save this file, automatically the browser is going to refresh it. Generally what you have to do, you have to save it, you have to go to the browser, you have to click on refresh, then it's going to refresh. Instead you can use a live server which will automatically refresh the page for you. So you can right click after you're done installing the live server, you can right click in the index.html page and you will have an option for open with live server. So click on that and that is going to open this file in a server. Okay, so it's going to have an IP address and a port number. Then it's going to show the file index.html. Before, when you had opened that from your local directory, it's going to show it like this. It's going to show the file path and then it's going to have the file name itself. But if you open it with a server, it's going to just open the file in a dummy server, which will actually, you know, as I said earlier, it's going to refresh. So let's go to the editor. Okay, so now let's type in some other headings. So as I mentioned, you can just type h1 or h2. So as I mentioned, you have from h1 to h6. So type in h2 and click on tab. That is going to generate the heading 2. So let's give it as heading 2. Okay, once you've done that, you can save this, and since you have the live server, you don't need to refresh it. Automatically it's going to refresh it for you. So you have the heading 1 and you have all the remaining headings as well, from h1 to h6. So h1 is the biggest one, whereas h6 is the smallest one. So that's the heading. So remember to add comments a lot, so that it is actually going to be easy for you when you refer to this file in the future. It's going to be easy. So let's add the headings now. So after the headings, let's add some paragraphs. So how do you think we are going to add the paragraph? Yeah, you guessed it right. So we are going to use it using the paragraph P. So the P tag is going to define the paragraph. So you have an opening tag and you have a closing tag. In this, you can actually type paragraph. So this is a paragraph. Save that and open it in the browser. You'll see a line called "this is a paragraph." So that is a paragraph. So this is a heading, right? It's a bit darker, whereas the paragraph is a bit lighter. So that's the difference between headings and a paragraph. And in Visual Studio Code, you don't actually type this thing. You can actually generate some dummy content as well. Just you have to type lorem, that is LOREM, and after you've done that, you can click on tab. That is going to generate a dummy paragraph for you. Okay, so this is some dummy text. I don't know what it means, but it's going to generate this for you. You can save the file, and when you open it in the browser, you're going to see the dummy data. And you can actually give the amount of data that you want to see as well. Let's say I don't want that many characters, I just want around 10 characters. So you can give it as lorem, then give it as 10, then click on tab. That's going to generate 10 characters. Let's say you want 50 characters, then click on type in 50 and click on tab. That's going to generate 50 characters, or similarly 100 characters, and so on. So that is going to generate the data that you want. Okay, so that is generally used to generate some dummy data, which is going to be useful for you when you create the template. So the next thing that we're going to use is links. Okay, so let's type another comment. Okay, so links. So we are going to generate a link in HTML using a tag A. So in the A tag, you can actually give some data inside the brackets as well. So you have the angular brackets, right? So you have the opening tag. So inside the opening tag, you can actually give some attributes. So these attributes are specific to that specific tag. So for the A tag, you have an attribute called href. So it's an hyperlink reference. So what it means is that when you click on that link, right? So let's say you type in here, click me. So whenever a person clicks on this, they have to be directed to a page, right? You have to point this link to a page, like you can point it to Facebook, or you can point it to Twitter or something like that. But you have to give the page location, right? Let's say you want to direct this person to Google. What you can do is you can give it as https://google.com. So whenever he clicks on click me, he's going to be directed to the Google page. So let's save that and let's see. So by default, a link in HTML looks like this. So when you click on this, automatically he goes to google.com. Let's say I don't want him to go to Google, I don't want him to go to Facebook. You can give it as Facebook and save it. So whenever he clicks on click me, he's going to go to facebook.com. Okay, so whenever you click on this link, you're going to go to the page in the same page, right? You don't want that to happen often. Let's say you have created a page where you want the person to go to another page, but you don't want that person to leave your page. Let's say you're marketing some other page. In that case, you have to, whenever you click on this, it has to generate another page here or another tab, and in that tab it's going to generate that page, right? So you can do that by giving a target attribute. So as I mentioned, you have attributes, right? So you have another attribute for link called as target. So whenever he clicks on the button, sorry, not a button, he clicks on the link, you're going to give a target. So you're going to give the property as underscore blank. What it means is that whenever he clicks on this click me button, why am I saying button? So whenever he clicks on this click me link, then he's going to be directed to that Google page in a blank tab. Okay, it's going to generate a blank tab, new tab. In that tab, it's going to open this website. So let's save that and see how it works. So before we had to open that in the same tab, right? So when you click on this, that is going to generate another tab and it's going to open that. So that's working. So that's for the link. So you can give the properties there. So after links, let's open images. So you can give, or you can actually use images here in HTML using a tag called img. It represents image. So in image as well, you can give some attributes. Okay, so the first attribute for an image is src. So src represents source. So let's say you have an image in your local directory. Let's say I have an image called birthday cake in my folder, inside the folder that I'm currently in. So I have an image called birthday cake.jpg, and you have to remember the extension as well. It has a jpg extension. So you can give that as so this is the image that we have. Okay, so it's actually quite small, so you can't see the data, but this is the image. Okay, so this is the image. So you can actually open the local files. Okay, you can actually open the local images, or if you want, you can actually go to a website, and let's say you went to Unsplash. So click on this image and right click to get the image address, copy that image address, and in the source option src, remove this birthday cake.jpg and give that. Okay, so you can give the link as well for that image, the image address, and save it and open that. So you will have the image as well. So you will have the image here. So you have another attribute here, right? So you have an alt attribute, alt. So what it means is that it's an alternate. I don't know what it means exactly, but this is actually very useful for blind people who can't see the website but who can, you know, use text to speech engines who use that. So let's say you have an image, right? So let's give it as coffee image. So whenever the person is using that text to speech engine, and whenever that engine comes across this image, it's going to read it as coffee image. So it can't represent that image by showing it, right? So it can just read that image, named it as coffee image. So the next tag that we are going to use is list. Okay, so we are going to create a list. So in HTML, you have actually two ways of creating lists, or two types of lists. So the first one is the unordered list. Okay, the second one is the, you guessed it, ordered list. So in the unordered list, you can create that by using the tag ul, that is unordered list. So in unordered list, you are going to create a list element. Okay, so the ul tag is going to be a parent tag. In that, you're going to have a child called list element. So that is represented using li, list element li. So in between the opening and the closing tag, you can give the data. So let's give it as ordered item 1, unordered list item 1. Copy that, paste it 2 times, sorry, and let's change it to 2, 3. Similarly, in the order list, you can give it as ol, ordered list, and in between the opening and the closing tag, we're going to type a list element li. So the list element is similar for the unordered or the ordered one, so it's same for the both of those. So you can give it as order list item 1, copy that and paste it 2 times. Let's give it as 2, 3, sorry. So save it and see, I had actually had a space here, right here and here. This space is going to be formatted by the prettier extension. That's going to reduce the unnecessary spaces and it's going to format it and make it look a lot cleaner. So once you're done that, save it and open it in the browser, and there you will be actually able to see this. So we have 2 lists. The first one is the unordered list, and the second one is the ordered list. So in the unordered list you will have bullet points, okay, so there's dots, whereas in the ordered list you will have 1, 2, 3 and all those numbers. Okay, so those are the 2 types of lists that you can generate in HTML. Then the next one is, it's going to be form. Yeah, so you can create a form in HTML as well. Okay, so first, before going to form, let's go with tables. Okay, so you can generate a table in HTML. So you can do that by using the tab table. So before we had all this abbreviations like UL, AL, IMG, P and H, right? But for table, we are going to have a tag called table. But inside of the table, we are going to have another tag called TR. So table is the parent tag, whereas TR is the child tag, which represents a table row. So imagine a 3D table. So in that table, we are going to have multiple rows, right? We have a first row with all the headings, then the second row with the first data, then the third row with the second data, right? So similarly, all the other rows. So we are going to first create a row, and in that row, we are going to have 2 types of data. So if you're going to create the first row, then that is going to be a table heading, right? So that's a table header. So it's going to be represented using TH, table heading. So you can give it as, let's say, product. Let's create a table for all the laptops. So it's going to be product, then another TH for the price, then another TH for the status, like whether it's available or not. So that is going to represent the first row with the headings, whereas in the second row we are going to insert the first line of data. So it's going to be TD, it's going to represent data. Yeah, so in that we are going to give it as, let's say, MacBook. Okay, so above we had 3 headings, right? Product, price and status. Similarly, we are going to have 3 data, and the first one is going to be the product name. So the product name was MacBook. Second one was price, right? So the price is 1 lakh. And the third one is status, right? Let's say it's available. Okay, so that is the first one. Let's copy this row, since we are going to have only 1 heading but multiple data rows. So let's paste another 2 rows and save it. So that's going to format it, right? Okay, so before we had it like this, but since we have the prettier extension, you can save it and automatically that's going to get formatted. So let's give the second product as, let's say, Surface laptop 1. Let's give the price as 90,000 and it's not available. Okay, so it's not available. The third one is going to be HP NV. Okay, let's give it as the NV product. So it's, let's say it's going to be around 70,000 or something like that, and it is available. So we have 2 data parts, 3 data items and a header. So this is the table. So let's save that and see what it looks like. Okay, so we have a product, we have a price and we have a status. So these are the 3 columns. So the first row is the heading, so that's a bit darker. Then next we have the product, the price and the status for the first row. The second product's price and the second product's status. Similarly for the third one. So here we have the table, but you don't have a border, right? So we are going to create that border in CSS. but this is the basic structure for that. So next we have, let's go with forms. So forms are the most important part in HTML, okay? So this is actually going to be very useful when you're trying to get the data from the user. Let's say you want the user to log in, then you're going to use a login form, or a sign up form, or a newsletter. It's going to be a newsletter form, or a contact form, or something like that. Everything depends on forms, okay? So it's better to learn it perfectly. So for the form, similar to the table, we're going to have a tag called form, and in form as well you can define some attributes. So this attribute thing can be defined for everything here, okay? So you can give an attribute for table as well, but it's not needed here. We're not going to give it for now. You can actually give an attribute for the border part, but let's use CSS to style that, okay? So it's better to use CSS to style the table, but just to let you know that you can actually use an attribute to style the table as well. So if you have time, you can search for that. So moving on, so we have the form, right? So in the form you're going to have some other tags as well. So the first tag is the input tag. So the input tag is going to generate a field, okay? So let's have it till here, let's save it, and let's see what we're going to first get. So below the table we have a box, right? So in that box you can type some data. So that is an input field, okay? So that's the basic thing that you're going to see in a form. So you can type some data in that field. So let's give it as, the type is presently given as text, right? So you can change that type, okay? So for now let's give it a placeholder, okay? So this placeholder is going to define what we are going to place in that. So let's give it as username and save it. Automatically you're going to see a username here, right? So this is going to vanish whenever you type in something. So that is a placeholder that is going to be available to direct us or instruct us what this input field is for. The next we have another input field. This time let's change the type to be email. So let's say you want to take the email from the user, small letters, not caps, and you can do that. Sorry. So let's give it as email, save it and refresh. So you're going to have another field with email, but this time this field is going to be useful when you type an email. Let's say in the username you can give anything, you can give any type of data text, okay? You can give some random name and it's going to accept. But in email, if you don't give @ symbol, it's not going to accept. So you have to give an email with an @, okay? So only then it's going to accept that. So that's a countermeasure for not taking just the data, not taking plain text, okay? So next we have another input for the password as well. So let's say you don't want the user to see what the password he is typing, okay? Let's just show it to you. So we have another field here. You can actually, so this typing that you're seeing right now is something that is happening due to my extension in the Chrome browser. Don't worry about that for now. So in the password you're going to have let's say you type in something. As you can see, we can actually see what we're typing. So that is something, it's like a security measure which is going to be useful when you type the password, okay? So these are the 3 input fields that you can use. Then next you have another input field through which you can give a checkbox, okay? So it's going to generate a checkbox. So you can save that, and that is going to generate a checkbox. You can check it and uncheck it. So that's a working checkbox. Similarly, you can create a radio button as well. So it's going to be input and radio, and that is going to generate a radio button. So you can't give a placeholder here. It's not necessary to give a placeholder. It doesn't make any sense. So the last thing that you can do in this thing in the form is you can create a button. So this is a button inside the form. So that is going to generate a button with this text. So let's save it and refresh. So we have a button here. This is a button inside the form, so you can click that button, and since we haven't actually linked this button to something, it's not going to do anything, but still you have a button. Okay, so these are the things that you're generally going to use inside the form. These are mainly the essential things. You can use other things as well, but those are not necessary for this video. So the last thing, sorry, not the last thing. So the next thing what we have is divisions. So divisions is another thing which is actually very important in HTML. So this division is what it's going to do is essentially is that it's going to group all the data inside of a container. Okay, let's say you have an h1 and you have a paragraph, and you don't want them to be separate. So whenever you open this thing in the Chrome browser, and let's open it with the developer tools in the Chrome browser, you can actually access this by right clicking and click on inspect. It's going to generate this thing. So it's going to open the developer tools for this. So as you can see, when I hover over the properties, all the items present here are individual elements. Okay, so this is an element, this is an element, this is an element. Similarly, all the individual headings and paragraph, each of them are an individual element. But let's say you don't want that, and instead you want to wrap all of that inside of a single container and make that as an element. So that is going to be quite useful when you're trying to arrange the things inside the page, and when you're trying to apply the property to the whole thing. Okay, let's say you want to apply a property to the whole division. So whatever data is present inside that division, that property will be applied to all those elements. Okay, so you can do that by using divisions. So you can create a division by typing in as div. So that is going to generate the div. So inside this division you can give anything you want. So I'm going to type a heading and another paragraph. So it's going to be lorem. Okay, that's fine. Let's generate that, and when you save it and refresh, at the bottom you will have that division itself. So it's going to create that as a whole container. Okay, so if I go down and see here, so it has generated a whole division, right? You can see the box, right? It is wrapping the whole division. So when you apply a property, if you apply property to this division, the property will be applied to the elements present inside the division as well. So let's actually give a style for this. This is something that we're going to learn in CSS part. So as you can see, it has generated a border around the division itself. So this is the whole division, and these are the elements present inside that division. So using this division, you can actually arrange the elements inside the page. So it's mainly used for that, and you can actually group all the things into single division. Okay, so that's for divisions. So there are last two things in the HTML part, that is the classes and ID. So this class and ID, we're going to discuss that in the CSS part, because when I try to use the properties, only then will you be able to understand both of these. So we are done with the HTML crash course. I hope you have learned something from this crash course. So as I mentioned earlier, this is not meant for everyone. So this is mainly meant for people who don't have a single bit of idea of what HTML is and just want to learn the basics of how to create a website. Okay, so I can assure you that for creating a simple website, this is more than enough for you. Okay, so you don't need to learn anything else. And by the end of this whole crash course, web development crash course, we are actually going to create a website, and at that time as well, you are going to feel that this is more than enough. Okay, so in the next video, we are going to create a mini project using all the data that we have learned here, all the noise that we have learned here. So we are going to create the mini project using this. I hope you guys have learned something from this video and enjoyed it a bit. So if you have enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button, because that's going to motivate me to create more free video content for you like this. And thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you again in the next video.